Lorik here.
Kavich here.
Ladani here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Approval of the July 9th, 2019 minutes. If everybody please take a look. There are no questions, omissions, errors. We will look for a motion.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of July 9th, 2019.
Ladani second.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Ladani aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler abstains.
And item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
Council approved the following: an ordinance amending the conditions and restrictions in Ordinance 2926 for automobile and truck engine and body repair, outdoor storage of vehicles, and outdoor display of vehicles for sale and semi-truck trailer parking at 9840 South 27th Street. An ordinance revising Ordinance 2939 to incorporate conditions and restrictions on a general development plan for the plan unit development at 10730 South Howell Avenue, and a resolution approving a certified survey map submitted by Derek Travis for the properties at 3945, 3955, and 3971 East Elm Road. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Our first item 5A, is TID number 12 amendment to Project 1 project plan and boundaries. Who do we have with us tonight, Doug or Carrie? Who's taking this one? Carrie?
I'll give a brief overview and then I will turn it over to Dan Johns from Vanderwall and Associates to give a brief presentation. What is on the screen right now indicates what is currently in the TID location and what is proposed. And actually, before we go any further, I will read the notice of the public hearing into the record. Notice of public hearing for the City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. or thereafter on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019 in the Common Council Chambers on the lower level of City Hall, 8040 South 6th Street by the City of Oak Creek Plan Commission on the proposed Amendment Number 1 of Tax Incremental District Number 12, TID 12, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, the proposed expanded district boundary thereof, and related changes to the schedule and amount of eligible projects in the project plan. The purpose of TID 12 as amended is to provide financing for new infrastructure and promote economic development in an area of the city poised for future commercial growth. Proposed project costs identified in the amended project plan include cash grants that may be provided by the city to owners, lessees, or developers of property within TID 12 pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 661105. The purpose of the public hearing is to hear those persons who wish to express their opinions for or against the amendment of TID 12, the proposed boundary expansion, and the amended project plan. Map, legal description, and project plan for the amended district can be viewed at the Department of Community Development by appointment, 8040 South 6th Street, Monday through Friday between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. A copy will be provided by request. Any persons with questions regarding the proposed Amendment Number 1 to TID 12 and/or the project plan may call the Planning Department at 414-766-7000. Proposed TID Amendment Number 1 boundaries were included in the map that was published. This is the public notice. City of Catherine Roski, City Clerk, City of Oak Creek. This is a public hearing. Before we call anybody to the podium to provide any comments on the proposed TID 12 amendment, we will have a brief presentation by Dan Johns.
All right, we're live. Dan Johns with Vanderwall and Associates, City TIF consultant, here to give you a brief overview of the proposed project plan and boundary amendment, the first of up to 4 that are available under state law for this particular district. The purpose of this is really to expand the boundaries well beyond this is known as the IKEA TIF. So going beyond just the store itself and the immediate surroundings, that this will allow the district to come out to Drexel and then actually go over the expressway to capture and facilitate a couple of new projects that have been proposed for this vicinity. And then there are related spending plan amendments to facilitate public improvements to the roadways, additional capital costs, and provide additional development incentives for the projects that have been proposed, and ultimately help support the growth of this key commercial and residential gateway to the city. So for the benefit of our audience here, I'll give a brief overview of TIF as a mechanism, which it is financial in nature and is intended to spur development in areas of a city that, but for the use of TIF, and that's a key phrase, would not otherwise see the type, magnitude, or timing of development desired by the community. And in Oak Creek, we are seeing a development probably would occur, but in order for it to happen in the way that the city desires, and you all have set a very high bar as far as high quality development, that TIF is the best way to get that type of development. And it uses taxes from increased property values within the district itself to fund public projects and achieve financial feasibility of private projects where it's demonstrably shown that they otherwise couldn't stand. So TIF itself, the base value is set at the time of district creation for the parcels that are within it, and the taxes that are paid at the time of district creation on the values of at that time, which for TID 12 was 2016. Those taxes continue to flow to the overlying taxing jurisdictions, including the city, county, school district, technical college, sanitary district. And any new value that's created within the district during the district life goes into a separate account to go to pay for the project costs that are identified within the project plan. And the joint review board that is made up of these various taxing jurisdictions provide the city great latitude to accomplish the projects and costs that are outlined in the project plan. So from a practical standpoint, creating a TIF, it's not a tax rate increase. It doesn't change the way properties are assessed within the district. It doesn't provide the city any additional powers of condemnation. It simply provides an alternative revenue source for some public improvements, and assistance for TIF is available to any property owner within the district, and doesn't really require any action on the part of any individual property owner within it. That it's all strictly controlled by the city and with the blessing of the taxing jurisdictions on the joint review board. So a few of those key terms again: the base value is the value at the time the district is created and or amended, in this case, where the properties to be added, the 2019 assessment values will be added to the base. The value increment is the new assessment value that is expected to be created in the future, either through property appreciation or new construction. Tax increment are the revenues from those increased values. The joint review board, JRB, is made up of all of those taxing jurisdictions. And TID versus TIF, we use the terms more or less interchangeably, but the TID is the district itself, the boundary, and TIF is the financial mechanism. So within the project plan, there are a number of things that state law requires. It establishes the boundaries of the district and the tax IDs that are included within them, declares a certain type of TID, whether it could be mixed use, industrial, blighted, or for rehabilitation, and then sets a certain maximum time frame, somewhere between 20 and 27 years. Lists an itemized list of project costs and expenditures that are allowed, projects potential development projects and values, and then performs a feasibility analysis, basically balancing those costs versus revenues, and demonstrates this but-for finding. That is very important. I'll get to that in a second. And then demonstrating consistency with city plans and zoning. So, but for specifically that each project that receives TIF assistance needs to advance one or more public purposes, whether that's blight elimination, diversifying the tax base, creating jobs, doing environmental cleanup and the like, and generally providing for market feasibility in areas that, but for the use of it, would not occur, or again wouldn't occur in the fashion that the city would otherwise like it to. And each project receiving TIF financing really has to stand on its own. It's determined on a case-by-case basis. And the council retains full control over each and every project. So the TIF boundary amendment itself, the area shown in blue is the current boundary, with just the store and the commercial area directly to the south. Additional parcels have been combined with that area. It's a little tough to see here, but that's parcel number 2 that then brings that commercial space all the way out to Drexel Avenue. To the east of the freeway, the area at the northwest has been proposed for multifamily residential development, which could ultimately accommodate a large number of units. And then the area at the southeast is proposed for a multi-phase commercial development, and there will be a number of road improvements that are proposed under this project plan that would help to facilitate the build out of all of these areas. So here's a rendering of that commercial concept at the northwest corner of Drexel and 13th. You can see that there's a number of new entrance ways that would need to be added off of 13th and or Drexel, and the general development plan is still somewhat subject to change here, but a number of different users are expected, and this is expected to occur sometime within the next couple of years. Here's some further details on the street improvements at the corners of Drexel and 13th. Again, additional right-of-way might need to be acquired in some instances in order to provide for more turn lanes and just accommodate more traffic that the city is already seeing in this area. So this is really just a long time coming now that the IKEA is already here, and this area is really poised to explode as far as additional commercial and residential growth is concerned. And here's another view of Drexel and 13th going north to south. Again, this amendment would take the district from one parcel at the time of its creation up to 15 and 126 acres. It continues to be a mixed-use TIF, which provides for up to a 20-year maximum life. The amended base value will be just shy of $4 million. And based on the financial numbers that are provided for in the plan, the total value increment, new construction and inflation appreciation value is up to $165 million. And if it occurs at the timing that we anticipate, that could generate almost $47 million in total tax receipts over the life of the district. So as far as eligible project costs, this is a generalized list. They include but are not limited to capital costs, including infrastructure, property assembly and relocation, demolition and site prep, various planning, consulting work, engineering, legal, marketing and project concepts for the TIF, cash grants to developers, which are included in this project plan, subject to appropriate development agreements that are hashed out on a case-by-case basis, and then other non-project costs that are included to the extent that they affect the district. So I'll turn it over to Andrew to say a little bit more about the project costs in particular.
Thanks, Dan. And backing up a little bit, obviously a significant gateway into the community and something we have to get right and something we want to do strategically. And we want to strategically use the one arrow in our municipal quiver that we have, and that is the TIF tool. You can kind of see the project in the TID here kind of breaks down in naturally west of the highway, east of the highway. We have aspirational goals for obviously this entire TIF district. We have aspirational goals for the areas south of IKEA that is held in ownership by Northwestern Mutual, a great partner of ours. We are certainly visioning and planning and determining how we want that area to look and feel, but we're not quite there yet in terms of actual projects. The projects are a little more defined on the east side of the interstate, which is the 13th and Drexel corridor, and that's really why we are here now. That's really why the timing of the TIF boundary amendment. If you look at those project costs, we have a significant need for additional capacity at 13th and Drexel. I think the project that's ongoing right now that the county has undertaken is widely publicized. It's been, a long time to get those punch list items done. We know that the after condition that County V 13th Street will be in will not be at the capacity we need to appreciably, or I guess fully, build out the corridor that we're speaking of at the northwest corner of 13th and Drexel. We know that. We knew that when the county undertook this project. So you might ask, well, why such intelligent intergovernmental coordination? That's not the case. We did try to plan the timing of these projects with the county. However, the county was relying on grant funds, STP funds, to produce that project, and they had to be used by a certain point in time. And we were not ready at that time to. Obviously, the TIF tool wasn't in place, so we really didn't have a financial lever to pull to build the capacity to get this capacity we need to fully build out the corridor here on the east side of the interstate. So you're probably wondering, geez, we had the same discussion with Ryan Business Park. We're situated at an interchange of a major highway. What doesn't work for the private sector to come in and get the city out of the business and out of the TIF business in this area? Well, you look at it through this lens. This is the way we look at it. We have about a $4.9 million cost for the overall, the full improvements we want to make eventually at 13th and Drexel. And the economics of saying the developer should take on those costs and add that to the property cost of doing business, those economics don't work. We've looked at those numbers. We've worked with the developer on that. We believe it's been evidence that that will not work. So that's funder number one, the best one, the developer. We love that every time, but that's not the case. The second potential funder is the general taxpayers of the city of Oak Creek. And that's what we are left with in the event the tax increment tool isn't available. If this boundary amendment isn't approved, we are left with the general taxpayers of the city trying to figure out how to fund the on-site improvements as well as the 13th and Drexel improvements, and I'll get back to that. So we rely upon the TIF tool. We feel that it's the most responsible way to move forward for the developments themselves that are benefiting from them, from the infrastructure improvements to pay for them. And that's what the TIF tool does. It makes the properties within the district pay for the public improvements and the incentives that go along with attracting development and being having the capacity from a transportation standpoint to garner those retail and commercial uses. Dan, if you go back to the general development plan for that area, you can see that in addition to the design of 13th and Drexel that Dan had showed, kind of the engineering sketches, there's also a significant number of on-site improvements that need to be made. Typically, those are going to be private in this situation. A lot of road, water, and sewer work. That developer is also faced with those costs. So just to further drive home the point of adding on, well, you also have to put $5 million in 13th and Drexel, put it all in, and then just get it out of the per acre cost that you're charging for these folks. Land would never be able to be transacted. It would be an exorbitant amount of cost per acre for somebody to come in and take down property and build their building, build their development. And that's where Dan was talking about with some of the prongs of the but-for test. Would it occur? It could occur. Something could occur here. But at the, kind of the quality and the quickness that the city of Oak Creek desires it to, that answer is no. So getting in now to the subject, the project costs. This is by no means a financial blueprint. This is a plan, and this is a budget. And I had mentioned that we have some visioning and some planning going on the west side of the interstate with our partner and some developers that have shown interest, but we're not quite there. A lot of the development incentives that we show in the project plan budget are there to accommodate potential development prospects on that side of the interstate that haven't presented themselves to us yet or are very early on. So getting into the project plan costs, I'm going to bring it up on my computer here just so I can see it a little better. What we tried to do with this slide is really show you what was in the originally approved project plan for TID 12 when it was kind of just IKEA, and then kind of on the side there in the margins you see the new plan. The biggest changes that one of which I had already mentioned is the 13th Street in Drexel. Those are all new costs. And then you get down into the development incentives. We showed you the slide on all of the on-site improvements that will need to be made on the what we call the Highgate property on the northwest corner of 13th and Drexel. While these are called developer incentives, those can take many forms. Those can be cash grants, which they often are. However, those can also be to defray costs for certain on-site project costs that are exorbitant. A massive stormwater pond that may benefit a larger area, a mass grading of the site, roads, water, and sewer, those types of things. So typically, although they're called developer incentives, they're tied to project costs that make the project feasible. One of the bigger changes from the original IKEA TID plan, if you will, to the new one is the developer-funded incentives that the city negotiated with IKEA will come in and be far less than the maximum that was available to IKEA. You'll see that the original maximum amount for pay-go incentives to IKEA was $13 million. That's looking like it's going to come in at about $6 million throughout the life of the district. That's good news. So we reallocated some of those savings for developer incentives to the other line items below that, which you see. We increased the developer-funded incentives, which are pay-go incentives, from about 9.5 million up to 11.5 million, as well as adding in a budget for upfront development incentives. We know we'll have a mixed bag of upfront and back-end project costs and cash incentives to to attract the aspirational development that we want to see in this area. A lot of that $11.5 million budget would go to attract those types of users, and that's agnostic to either side of the interstate. That could be anywhere within the district. So you'll see the total difference for from the original project plan to the current project plan is about $8.4 million. So the next question is, well, okay, that sounds all well and good, but how do we pay for it? And that goes into I think the heart of the TID project plan, which is the financial feasibility, which I think is the next slide. Oh, you jump in on that, and then we can talk about the financial feasibility.
So the amended base value, again, it's approaching 4 million, and that will continue to go to the underlying taxing jurisdictions. That's about $83,000 a year in taxes. But based on the amount of increment that's projected, the $165 million in total value and development and tax increment generated of almost 47 million. At the end of the life of the district, there could be as much as $3.5 million per year being thrown off. And even as of today, the IKEA itself is throwing off nearly $400,000. Most of that is tied up in the development agreement that the city negotiated. But ultimately, this area is primed to see significant growth over the years, and we can detail those projections a little bit further, starting with this slide. That the IKEA is fully assessed as of this year, and additional total development is expected to be $125 million or more from now through the end of 2026 in order to get us to those tax receipt numbers that that we're showing over the full 20-year life. And Andrew can say a little more about this, but we're not anticipating that the district would be closed early, but there will be some opportunities perhaps to return certain parcels back to the general tax rolls before then, based on the actual schedule of development.
Just to jump in and just explain that a little further, we really looked at a couple ways to accommodate what we were trying to do here. We looked at an amending the TID 12 boundary, which is what we ultimately decided on. We're here today. We looked at creating a brand new tax increment district on the east side of the interstate, and then we also looked at using project the 1/2 mile boundary where you can do highway improvements, if you will, within 1/2 mile of a TIF. We ultimately decided the best course of action was to amend the TID 12 boundary, and the big reason for doing that was the way the IKEA deal had been structured was lent to the fact that we could never close TID 12 out early. We have to pay them the annual property taxes that they generate, but for debt service on South IKEA Way that we pay first, all of our costs are covered, and then what's left over from their property tax payments is returned to them for 20 years. That accrues to that $6 million I was telling you about. So we can't close TID 12 early. And we thought, well, let's not create a new TIF if we don't have to. Let's not do that unnecessarily. Let's amend the TID 12 boundary. Because that doesn't mean that we have to lock all of this territory in the TID 12 for the full 20 years. As Dan alluded to, we have the ability, at the point in time project costs are paid off, we have the ability to examine whether we want to subtract parcels or territory from TID 12, putting those tax revenue dollars back, putting that tax revenue back on the general fund of the city and benefit to the general taxpayers at any point in time. And you really have the same benefit as if a TID were closing. When you subtract territory, it operates in very much the same manner, just with a little less value. And that's really important. So you have the 29 million, you have the additional value that Dan was talking about. Those properties within that district pay for those project costs, not you and I, not our property tax bill for our homes. Really important to denote that and continue to stress that, because oftentimes the public is a little confused on that piece. These are not our tax dollars that we are spending. It's the tax revenue derived from the new projects within this district. So getting into the financial feasibility, it's really broken up into 4 different debt issuances that we may be looking at. Again, a plan, not a blueprint. Moving from left to right on your screen, the first 2, which we just refinanced last week at council, was for the improvements that have already been made to South IKEA Way, constructing and improvements to South IKEA Way. So those are in a long-term amortization right now. That takes care of the 1.04 and the roughly 4.1. The third column over is the 50% of the $4.9 million costs we're looking at for 13th and Drexel. We are asking the developer, as it sits today, to contribute 50% of that cost. And then moving over to the far right column, roughly a little over $3 million. I know that's hard to read. That is for that one line item that is denoted as upfront development incentives. Whatever else is available as we're cash flowing and getting projects in and paying for our costs, and then there's cash flow, we have the ability for that positive cash flow, if you will, to be developer funded or pay as you go costs or incentives. So that's really detailing, that chart is really detailing kind of the financial analysis when you take in all of your debts that you will be amortizing out.
So the resolution that's in front of you tonight includes a number of findings that are required under the TIF law, but there are a few key findings in there that we would want you to include should you decide to make a positive recommendation to the council. Again, getting back to the but-for test, that but for this amendment to the district, that the development that's anticipated and desired by the city would not otherwise occur. The economic benefits of the TID are sufficient to compensate for the costs, basically that it's financially feasible, and then that the benefits of the proposal and all of the ancillary benefits that flow to the city outweigh the tax increment and receipts from the overlying jurisdictions that are foregone in the meantime that otherwise, but for the use of TID, would not be there at all. As far as our timeline is concerned, tonight is the public hearing. The Joint Review Board had its organizational meeting last Tuesday. Again, should this body advance the amendment, it will be taken up by council on Monday, August 5th, and then the Joint Review Board will come back together to finally approve the plan sometime in the following weeks. With that, we can take any questions and open it up.
Great, thank you, guys. As this is a public hearing, we will make 3 calls. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium, give your name and address, and this will be the first call. Second call. Again, anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, give your name and address, and this is the second call. Third and final call. Anybody wishing to speak on item 5A, please approach podium, give your name and address. This is the third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing on 5A and get into 6A new business, which is consideration of the TIF 12 amendment that we are just presented with. I'll now open it up to members of the commission for any questions or comments. Fred?
Yeah, I'd like to know the time element. Is this 20 years staying the same? There's no change in the time from the original district to the amendment? In other words, there's not additional time because there's 2 years different between the original and the amendment. So we're still staying at the 20 years on that payoff.
Yes, the amendment doesn't reset the clock for an additional 20 years.
Okay.
So in your example, it will still close in 2036. That's the statutory life, I should say. It's 2036. So we're not adding on 20 from today. It's still 20 from when we created it in 2016.
And the second question is, what determines the boundary for this amendment? How did you determine that as far as, 13th Street and so forth? What determined that
So
amendment?
could you go to that? Or is that up? On the west side of the highway, south of the IKEA, Northwestern Mutual's property, it was really cleanup. As you see, the only the only parcels in that tract of land were those single-family homes or small parcels along Drexel. So we're kind of cleaning that up and making the boundary Drexel Avenue. On the east side of the interchange, you have the 2 large principal parcels that you see. And then you also have kind of an appendage parcel down to the what would be the southwest corner of 13th and Drexel. So moving from south to north, the small appendage, the parcel that has a home and I believe an outbuilding on it, is very likely going to need to be acquired for the infrastructure improvements that are going to be made to 13th and Drexel. So we wanted to include that parcel in there so we could apply those costs to that parcel. Not I shouldn't say that. Not apply the cost to those parcels, but have the TID cover the costs for acquiring and improving that parcel. We're not charging the property owner by any means. And then the parcels to the north, really we looked at, and the commission's completely aware, a hospital's been announced, a Summit Credit Union has been announced, and you have also gone through and approved the 300 multifamily units to the north. That boundary coincides with a financial analysis that I did to say, if we were to take on costs in the district, what types of values do we need to capture to be able to pay back those costs? And to be sure, the increment from the multifamily, the wingspan development to the north, will help us comfortably pay off the improvements on site and the improvements at 13th and Drexel. So that's really where what we look to capture to pay off those public infrastructure costs.
For now, Fred? Jocelyn, anything?
I do have a question. For the items that are on 13th Street, Are all of those homes?
yes.
One home left, Doug, or two?
There is one property that is not part of the overall development plan. The project developers have approached and in all but one case, I believe, have agreements to acquire those properties and in fact probably have closed on several of them already. You may have even seen those consolidated as part of a CSM or certified survey map that was presented to the commission earlier. So, with the exception of one, and I think that it was a matter of that property owner just didn't feel comfortable at that point in time and being part of that development, that it would be all acquired by developer and would be, again, that's one of those extraordinary development costs that typically could be covered through the TIF district and consolidation of those properties. Because certainly as 13th Street, County Highway V, even given the background traffic that's taken place in the last few years, I think reasonable people would come to the conclusion that that's not the best place for single-family residential development, and to accommodate those parcels and the sale of those parcels into a master planned mixed-use development is beneficial not only to the people who have those properties because they can get into a potentially better situation, but it eliminates a lot of driveways on 13th Street, which are conflicts, and it also makes for a much better development.
One additional question. You showed several slides in regards to the updates to 13th Street. Can you give us a little more detail about these changes?
The changes that were proposed or shown on 13th and Drexel were formulated from the traffic impact analysis. That traffic impact analysis was done as an entire corridor, looking at the development from Howell all the way to 27th Street. It took into consideration Highgate and Wingspan, and that's how basically that intersection was developed.
Thank you.
I think that's an important consideration as well. The TIA was done on the entire corridor. So while certainly the infrastructure costs and the actual construction will take place within or adjacent to the boundaries of this district, that background traffic is contributing to the need for some significant infrastructure improvements at this corner, which otherwise would be taken out, and I think Andrew pointed out, would be taken out of a capital project by the city itself.
Thanks, Doug. Hey, Chauncey? Fred?
Got another question. 13th Street is a county road. Are they involved at all with this improvement and so forth, costs that we have?
Not moving forward, nor would they be typically.
Okay.
That's not a negotiation or anything along those lines that they involve themselves in. As we've seen in the Ryan Business Park, the 13th, that's 13th Street as well, and a major employer, major economic development project is coming in there, and they're not contributing anything. I guess to their contribution here is the capacity that they have received for, or the capacity they will generate after they close out this project. So we got some of the way there. They did contribute some of the way there, and I don't know how the STP funds work. And maybe Commissioner Sullivan can add to that, but I don't know what out-of-pocket costs they have or what that matches. But they certainly contributed to where the city will pick up where they left off. They've contributed to that capacity to a degree.
I think I would also add that, the county is a significant portion of the local tax bill, and given the way TIFs operate, the county, who is a member of the Joint Review Board, would essentially be foregoing that revenue during the life of that incremental revenue over the life of the district. So the county, as well as the school district, as well as MATC and the city, are all partners in the development for the project plan.
That's a good point, Doug, because one of the main kind of principles of tax increment financing is typically the city or the village, the local entity, takes on all of the risk and costs associated with enhancing tax base, but all of the overlying taxing jurisdictions, without any investment in that economic development, take advantage of the increased taxes. So what the TID does is it kind of manipulates that formula and says, you have to agree to it, But for a period of time, you're going to forego these taxes for a larger multi-tax jurisdiction investment in infrastructure improvements and tax base. This is the counties and the school districts. This is their skin in the game without them putting skin in the game in terms of financial contribution. It's a foregoing versus a capital outlay upfront on their behalf.
Don, anything?
Nope. I don't have any questions.
Not going this way. Christina, nothing? Matt? Greg?
Just a couple clarifying questions. The new base that's created with the boundaries, that is only taking into account the new parcels, correct? That does not take into account any development in the original boundaries that's happened since 2016? Is that correct?
That is right, yes. The IKEA parcel itself was frozen prior to that being constructed, so the base value of that parcel is only about $10,000. So all of the value that's being added is our 2019 values for just the parcels that are being added.
And the amending of the boundaries does not affect the IKEA development agreement in any way, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I think you really answered a lot of questions going forward. I think they kind of said it best. This really is going to serve the city in the long run. Strategically, they looked at it at a number of ways and really came to the conclusion this is the best way to move forward on this for everybody. Traffic, again, we're well aware of what's going on, and it seems kind of redundant that the county just finished up an intersection, and it's not where it needs to be. Andrew kind of said that. It coincided with available money the county had, and the timing just did not work out with the city. Otherwise, we would like to have done this in tandem and got it where it needed to be. Unfortunately, we weren't going to put that burden onto our constituents, our taxpaying residents. So this is the better financial way to go for it. There is an inconvenience for it, but in the long run, we will be better off as a city for doing it this way. So there's no further questions. We'll move to motion on 6A.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission adopt resolution number 2019-2 approving the territory addition boundaries and amending the project plan for tax increment financial district number 12.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Moving on, item 6B is a consideration of a minor land division for a certified survey map reconfiguring properties at 8934, 8978, 8980 South Nicholson Road. Carrie, you got this one?
The proposal is to amend the shared boundary between the two properties that are shown in red. It's a little bit of a difficult thing to see on the screen. The larger parcel actually does go out to the road in two areas, but it's the shared boundary line between the two in the middle that we are discussing here. The original CSM showed that one of the parcels, the parcel to the south, had 110 feet of frontage, and the one to the north of the red triangle or the red square there, that actually had frontage of 90. So the proposal is to make those even at 100 feet each. There are no other changes. You will note that there are some utility and drainage easements that are shown. They are unaffected by the proposed boundary adjustment. The minimum lot size and minimum lot width requirements will both be exceeded by the parcels they are right now. The existing wetlands and floodplain boundaries are also unaffected by the proposal. They're not located within the vicinity of the proposed adjustments, so delineations are not required at this time. However, in the future, should any development occur on those properties, a delineation may be required. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map or minor land division submitted by Simon Kryzon for the properties at 9834 and 9878/9880 South Nicholson Road be approved with the following condition. that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up to questions, comments. If anybody has any questions, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and we can go from there. We'll start with the commission. Anything, Fred?
Yeah, is the landowner that had those two properties, are they the same persons that had both of those? Or is it two separate owners?
It's the same owner.
Okay, and they are in agreement with this?
It's the same owner for both
owner for
properties.
both- Okay. No problem.
Anything? Don? Some questions have been raised about why the property owner would like to do this. Is property owner with us tonight? By chance, can you come up, sir? I had some questions, some calls, some comments on why you'd like to combine the properties.
This gives me a what?
Name and address?
Oh, Simon Crezon, 9834 South Nicholson Road, which is one of the properties in question here. The entrance to, it has to be two entrances to a property in the back in order to do any development. This would be one of the two, and the second one would be on Fitzsimmons. So this gives me a little bit wider entrance and not affecting the two neighbors that are there.
Okay, so your overall possible plan, you're just setting yourself in the future that could possibly develop lot 2 and back, just shy of 23 and a half acres there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you answered the question, and so thank you. I guess I really don't have any questions. Again, staff recommends that really the certified survey map is okay to do this. Keep in mind, any development that would go on, whether road, whatever, would come back before, first of all, they'd go to planning, make sure it fits. Zoning would have to be there, if not in place already. So we'd go through this whole procedure again through planning if anything were to change back there. So at this time, it's just a certified survey map. Am I correct in that, Carrie?
Correct. Both properties are zoned for residential development, in case there was a question about that.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions, motion, please.
Clerk will move that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the certified survey map, minor land division, submitted by Simon Crezon for the properties at 9834 and 9878/80 South Nicholson Road be approved with the following conditions: that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes, are made prior to recording.
Hayford seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Moving on, item 6C. It is a request to rezone properties at 1001, 1199, and 1203 West Ryan and 9600 South 13th to B4 Highway Business. There will be no change to the floodway, the flood fringe districts. Carrie?
The request is for these several properties to be rezoned. You will note that there are several zoning categories that are on the screen in front of you. The largest parcel is currently zoned M1 PUD, and you will recall that the comprehensive plan was amended for the future land use category and map to plan business for this area at 1001 West Ryan and 9600 South 13th in April and May of this year. So this request relates to the preparation of development parcels north of the creek, and it's a little bit difficult to see where the creek is on this particular map, but the proposal is to change the zoning north of there to accommodate the future development that is anticipated. Marketing and market conditions indicate that these parcels would be sought for commercial development, which would take two of these parcels actually out of the M1 district. Again, no change to the floodway district at this time. That is currently undergoing changes in modeling that would have to be approved by FEMA. That's in progress right now. We just don't have the finalization. Flood fringe, although depicted on here, that has been changed. We just don't have the update to show you on the map right here. And although the request includes these parcels as a whole, again, we are recommending that everything north of the creek be amended to the new zoning district B4, and then everything south of the creek would just remain as is. There are wetland boundaries. They are unaffected by the proposed amended zoning district. No other changes are proposed at this time. Any future development of these parcels would, again, have to come before the Plan Commission. And if there's any questions, we do have a representative for the project here to answer them for you. There is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the properties at 1001, 1199, and 1203 West Ryan Road and 9600 South 13th Street be rezoned to B4 Highway Business with no change to the FW Floodway or FF Flood Fringe districts after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up to the commission. Let's go this way, Christina. Matt? How about you, Don? Greg? Don?
No.
Fred? Chauncey? Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that the zoning's changing on those properties, given the current condition of the area and what's going on there. So, seeing no questions, motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, if I can interject here, we would like to ensure that the suggested motion that we've provided incorporates language that the properties would be rezoned north of the creek. So if we could just interject after 9600 South 13th Street, north of the creek.
Okay, duly noted. Any brave commissioner that's going to make that motion, please include that.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the properties at 1001, 1199, and 1203 West Ryan Road and 9600 South 13th Street north of the creek be rezoned to B4 Highway Business. No change to the floodway or flood fringe districts after a public hearing.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Brings us up to 6D, and it's a plan review. Is a concept rendering for an outdoor dining addition to the south side of an existing restaurant at 1000 East Rawson Avenue. Carrie.
The proposal relates to the western building on the property in red on the screen right here. This is for outdoor dining and a patio addition to the south side of the existing building. And what I'm bringing up here is an overall site plan, and the zoomed in area on the top left here shows that patio addition. It would be in line with the easternmost edge of the existing building. For everybody's edification, this is what the existing lot looks like. They do share it with another building that is I believe it's a pet food store. And they do share parking on that lot. And this is a concept rendering of what that addition patio would look like. It's about approximately 513 square feet, surrounded on three sides, as you can see, by a decorative fence. Their overall parking would be reduced by 3 to accommodate this outdoor patio area. However, the overall total that is on the site dedicated to the restaurant would be 43. And they have approximately 12 employees that work on the weekends and about 6 employees per shift during the week. So we look at the minimum parking requirements per code for restaurants, and that's 1 space required for every 150 gross square feet of dining area and 1 space for every peak shift employee. Based on the approximate number of employees on site during the weekend peak shift and approximate area for the existing square footage of the dining area, and then incorporating this additional 516 square feet, we're looking at a total of 28 parking stalls estimated to be required for the entire usage. And since they have 43, those requirements are exceeded. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site plan submitted by, I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, Jaitan Rusidorsky of Vivir Fine Food, I'm so sorry, for the property at 1000 East Rawson Avenue, subject to conditions 1 and 2. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. You did a better job than I did, believe it or not. I got a weird name and I kill everybody's. It's horrible. Anyways, we'll open it up for questions from the commission. Chauncey,
I have a question for the applicant.
can you please come to the podium and name and address for the record?
My name is Yaton Rusadovsky. I live at 2120 East Oak Ridge Lane in Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
My question is about safety. So is this actually the parking lot where this new sitting area?
Yeah, it's the front end of our parking lot. Right now, there's 2 guardrails that are there for, you can kind of see them a little bit there. We will be cutting those out and moving them into the front if that's safe. Otherwise, we would be talking more with the Plan Commission about buying new ones to put. Because I believe by code you have to have something in front of them in case cars come in.
Not sure if that's a code requirement, but it's certainly a good idea.
Will this be seasonal? Will it come out in the wintertime?
No, it will be permanent.
It will be permanent.
Yeah, it'll be a concrete patio that we're going to build out. So it'll be there all season long.
Thank you.
Fred, you still looking, thinking? No?
Fine.
Anything, Don?
No, I don't have any questions.
Christina?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I don't know for you, Carrie, or for you. Did the neighbor business agree to this?
Yeah, I've talked to the business that's in the same parking lot as me. They're perfectly fine with it. The landlord is actually the neighbors across the street from us. They've given us permission to go ahead and build it.
Yeah, and it's especially regarding to the parking lot code and how many are required per business. Nobody's gonna go out there and monitor who goes where, right? So if it exceeds, pretty much you could be running out your business for his business because there is no place to park. How is that gonna work?
Well, actually, it's 43 that's dedicated to the restaurant. It's not 43 on site. There's more than 43 on the parcel.
And something else, and kind of echo what Chelsea just said, from just looking at that height of that trail, and I don't know if it's gonna be poured in concrete or what, but if a car by mistake hit it and there's people sitting out there, they could be hurt. So I don't know if something needs to be further looked at, or how is that gonna be evaluated?
Well, it's not in this picture, but there are actually like concrete poles that are in the front right now where it's supposed to be.
How many?
There's 2 of them that protect it. We want to move those back, but we could always add 2 or 3 more on either side just for extra security if that'll make everyone feel better.
I think it's gonna be for safety perspective, and maybe you wanna spread them around, maybe just not 2, you want more, especially how wide that is, so
That's not a
for
problem.
extra added measures.
I can definitely put 3 in the front and 3 on the side.
I'll let up to the engineers here to decide, I guess.
How about you, Matt? Any perspective? None? Dawn?
Great idea. Go to the restaurant all the time. To add some more seating, especially to be outside. Yeah, I echo your safety issues just in case, because this restaurant's been there forever. People are used to being able to pull up right there. So having that, and there's a wide range of ages that come to the restaurant. So having something secure so that they couldn't go through there.
No problem.
We have also seen with other outdoor dining areas that it's kind of curbed around it, and the patio is a little bit raised. I'm not sure you can actually do it in this location, but there are some options. We do have other examples in the city.
Greg? Nothing. Nothing, Fred? No. No, I think it's a great idea too. Believe it or not, this seems to be kind of a newer concept for Oak Creek. We did struggle an outdoor patio design in a much busier area, and we did figure it out. Again, I'm all for it. Have been to the restaurant, and again, it's just a hidden gem in our city. So, congratulations that you're expanding. I like to see investment in it. I'd continue to work with engineering, and again, just for your own safety with plows and whatever, if you have to incorporate them bollards, some concrete bollards that they pour into the fence work, be creative.
I do have one more question.
Yes, go
How
ahead.
about lighting?
We're looking at like just some lightings around the outside rails, just to like brighten it up a little bit. And I would like to put like a little bit, not spotlights, but you know, like those
know what
little
you're talking
bright
about.
bulbs in the front, just so it's lit up a lot at night, so people can see exactly where the patio is. So when they're driving through the parking lot, they don't come too close to it.
I think lighting will play a big key of the safety perspective of it.
So a lighting plan will have to be approved by the electrical inspector, and we would like a copy of that as well.
No problem.
Seeing no further questions, motion. Oh,
I was just going to suggest
Go ahead.
they make ballards that have lighting in them. Just
Oh.
just a suggestion. Could kill two birds with one stone right there.
no, good idea. Very good idea, actually.
And they're pretty sharp looking too.
Okay, seeing nothing else, motion, please.
Well, Donnie moves that the Plan Commission approves the site plan submitted by Jatan Rusadorsky, Revere Fine Foods, Inc. for the property at 1000 East Rawson Avenue with the following conditions: that all relevant code requirements remain in effect, that all revised plans, site building, landscaping, east elevation, etc., are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Hayford seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Bekavich, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Hayford, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And again, just keep in mind, if you're going to electrify anything, make sure you come in, get the proper permit, and consult with the city. Thank you. Item 6E is a plan sign review for a proposed sign at 120 West Town Square Way. Laura, you taking this one?
I got this one.
Not yet,
So this
eh?
is,
Next time. Okay. Is it? I'm sorry. Has everybody met Laurie? Okay.
so this sign plan review is for the Diesel Barber Shop that's in the 3-building multi-tenant development that is at 120 West Town Square Way. This is going to be in Suite 300 of that development. And the proposal is for 2 wall signs, one on each elevation, and there are some vinyl window decals that they are requesting. The master sign plan for this development limits the height of wall signs to 36 inches and the overall size to 1 square foot per 1 linear foot of frontage. The proposal is to have a 19.96 square foot wall sign on the west, which is an entry facade, and the exact same size wall sign on the east, which is a special condition facade, and both of those are in conformance with the master sign plan. You'll note that there is a barber shop pill, as they call it, which is what we've been referring to as a tagline in other instances. This incorporates push-through lettering to comply with local regulations, and staff would just like to thank the applicant and their consultants for working through that issue with us. This is to comply with local regulations, as I said. It's also for consistency in how we've addressed these types of taglines or pills in other sign packages for Drexeltown Square developments. There are also some vinyl decals that have been proposed that would be on each elevation on the glass. The eye-level signs that are allowed by the master plan and by Drexeltown Square's plan allows 1 eye-level sign or graphic per 12 linear feet of entry facade. That covering can be no more than 10% of the glazing. So they have 20 feet of linear frontage of entry facade on each elevation. That would allow them to have 12. It would allow them to have 1 graphic per 12 feet, so 1 on each side. It's up to the Plan Commission to determine whether or not each one of these would be considered as one overall, or if these would be individual ones. Again, this is 20 feet. They are allowed to have one window decal on each elevation. So staff is of the opinion that either the square footage would have to be reduced or a sign appeal would have to be submitted. There is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the sign plan submitted by Desi Versal, Signs Unlimited, for the Diesel Barbershop tenant space on the property at 120 West Town Square Way, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. I'll open it up for questions. Chelsea,
I have a question for the applicant.
are you here? Oh, come on up. We will need your name and address, please.
Hello, Tom Diedrich, 8625 South County Road K, Merrill, Wisconsin.
My question is about the decals. Can you provide a little more information on what the decals are and why they are continuous across this area?
They would be cut white vinyl, opaque, so you couldn't see through them, but they're basically just for design and appeal.
But what are these different symbols? What is its purpose?
Just to represent different symbols that, represent a barbershop. And I guess I don't have a definition for all of them, but you've got the scissors and Wi-Fi. And I see there's like a mug.
Hair or shaving cream on it too.
Yeah, shaving cream, I guess.
You know if their concept includes video games? That looks like an asteroid symbol.
I see that.
Like an Atari video.
Yeah.
It does? Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I was thinking of a mug of beer.
That's a great game. I think it's a mug of beer.
And so, can you provide a little more information on why it's continuous and not per the requirement?
I guess it would just be for appeal. That's all I can really say.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Fred, anything?
Carrie, would this be considered one sign? We mentioned that earlier.
So the way that we have been approaching this is a little bit different because they're so small, but in other developments, it's been one decal per frontage. So this, to me, because it's broken up, this could be several different decals, and of course, we also have the door. So when I talked to the applicant's representative from the sign company, I explained to them that staff's recommendation is to go forward with a sign appeal or reduce the number. Because again, this is on both elevations that they're requesting this. So unless the Plan Commission has a different interpretation, that's what we would recommend, what staff would be recommending.
Thank you.
As long as I'm on the right. Don, anything?
Nope.
From my point of view, again, we don't go on taste. I'm with Carrie. I'd come back on an appeal. We open it up for them. We're going to open it up for everybody. It really kind of throws the whole building out of whack with that little pinstripe thing going on. I will say this: I'd rather see the hours increased. I pulled up to a business in that particular strip mall and had to get out of the car to look what time they open, what time they close. So hey, believe me, I had to get out. It was raining. I wasn't happy. But anyhow, just my 2 cents worth. The commission can feel differently. But again, at that point, we'll have a flood of them coming in with everybody wanting to do decorative what they want to do. So again, I'd opt that they come back on a sign appeal, as Carrie suggested.
Question, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes.
I could, if they connected them with a faint line to connect each of those, how would you view that? If it's one contiguous decal.
No, it would have to go over the metal. It would have to go over the metal channel that separates the windows. So I mean,
Just a question.
Yeah.
There's probably
I mean,
ways to affect
over
the same
time,
thing
it's a
that-
decal. It'll wear. It'll go. I just
So you can put it on the second part of the glass on the inside, and then it would be all one continuous.
You could, but by the same token, didn't we have a case where somebody was hanging a sign within the window and it was within a few inches of the glass?
We
and
did,
made
but
them move that.
I think
So,
that's
I mean,
different than what the vinyl on the window. And I
I-
think the
I-
problem is that we have different elements that are here that are all disconnected. So you have the diesel logo that's on the door along with the hours, and we've been generally pretty generous about looking at that as being, informational. But then you have the decals on the bottom of the door as well. So you have these as all separate elements that could be considered different graphics. So is it just that we shrink them down and they get multiples, and that's how the rest of the developments are going to be? So that's kind of where staff is coming from, as one per frontage. It's not that we're for or against it. It's just that the process for how the code is written would be that they would appeal.
And again, it is a little stricter and a little different. Doug?
It is, and I think this is something, particular signs and how signs and the clear glazing is interpreted and actually instructed at some of the Drexel Town Square shops has been something that staff has kind of grappled with for quite some time, and we're looking for solutions that still retain and remain respectful of the goals for clear glazing. But I think that there are some things that we can, quite frankly, do a little bit better. Not that those necessarily come into play on this project, but just that you should know that certainly, if not sooner, as part of the new zoning code, I think we'll be looking to foster some new standards for how we interpret the glazing requirements, so that we don't end up with. I think you've seen an example of what these requirements lead to. It's people putting up shades in the windows, and I think we can do a better job of finding something that works for all parties. But that's not instructive as to what needs to happen this evening with respect to these decals. But I thought it's important that you know that.
Thank you. Any further questions? If none, motion, please.
Clerk will move that the Plan Commission approve the site plan submitted by Desi Varcel Signs Unlimited for the Diesel Barber Shop tenant space on property at 120 West Town Square Way with the following conditions. Number one, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number two, that 19.96 square foot wall sign on the west elevation and 19.96 square foot wall sign on the east elevation are approved. Number three, that one eye-level window sign graphic covering no more than 10% of the glass per elevation is allowed, west and east. The applicant may submit a sign appeal for any additional window signs. And number four, that all revised plans are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 6F is to review some plans submitted by Take 5 Oil Change for exterior building modifications to the oil change and car wash building at 6900 South 27th. Carrie?
The proposal is strictly for exterior building modifications. There are two buildings on the property, and they had been required to go before the Plan Commission for exterior building modifications in the past. This is a site plan showing where those buildings are, the south, or on this elevation, or on this graphic, it looks like it's going to be on the right. That is the oil change facility. The longer building on the left is actually the car wash facility that we're going to be talking about. So the proposal includes, this is what it looks like right now, it includes changing the color scheme on both buildings, changing the signage, adding some elements, taking off some elements, including the neon green open signs, and adding a couple of what they call aluminum pan checkerboards. It's those gray and or black and white checkerboard pattern things that you see on the screen right here. So the painted scheme is going to be red and tan and brown on the building. Again, these two buildings are proposed to match. They're looking to add wall sconces above the checkerboards, and that open sign again is going to be removed. The wall sign for the oil change is only shown for reference. It does comply with the requirements in code, so this is just for Plan Commission reference. For the car wash facility, however, there is a bit more extensive exterior building modification going on. Besides the paint, the canopy, which is integral to the design of the building, is actually proposed to be removed in order to make room for the facade to increase for that new signage. And while the proposal is to match, the Plan Commission will note that the sign for this particular building is quite large, larger than what is on the oil change facility. And even though the sign is not part of tonight's review, staff wanted to bring to the attention of the Plan Commission that we have recommended for that Take 5 portion of the sign to be reduced in size so that it matches more closely with the other building and it makes it a little bit more, it fits better with the building itself. We were able to reduce the size of the oil can on the other building, so we're looking for something to match here. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, again, for the exterior building modifications, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site plan submitted by Michael LeBreton, Take 5 oil change for the property at 6900 South 27th Street, subject to conditions 1 and 2. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up. Christina? Matt? Dawn? Greg? Don?
Nope.
How about you, Fred?
Yeah, I think that the signs that they have for the oil change and the car wash should be somewhat the same rather than have them different and standing out. I think if they had consistency for both buildings, I think that would kind of give it a more appealing than it would be to have one bigger sign and then a smaller sign. So that's just my idea.
Aussie?
I do have a question for the applicant.
Again, Tom Dietrich, 8625 South County Road, Cape Merrill, Wisconsin.
What are the checker items on the, which one is this?
Oil change.
Oil change, thank you. What are the checker pictures for? What are their?
It just goes along with their branding. It's just for decoration.
Okay, so no lights are going there?
Nope.
Just
Nope. It's just an
painted on
aluminum
there?
panel with a 1-inch return. No lights, just a decorative piece.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. I think the canopy going away kind of opens up the building a little bit. Again, it's the branding. I do prefer the smaller oil can, I guess, but that's not in question tonight. So I'm fine with it. We'll move for a motion.
Clerk moves that the Plan Commission approve the site plan submitted by Michael LeBreton, Take 5 oil change for the property at 6900 South 27th Street with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. And number 2, that all revised plans are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of permit applications.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Willow, I.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, last item, 6G is a sign plan review by Pure Bar for a tenant space at 120 West Town Square Way. Carrie?
So this is the exact same development that we had just reviewed for the Diesel Barbershop sign proposal. So this is for the Pure Bar tenant space that's in the middle building on the south end. The master sign plan, again, limits the height to a 36-inch overall sign and 1 square foot per 1 linear foot of frontage for the wall sign itself. They are proposing 2 wall signs, 1 on each elevation. Each is in conformance with the master plan and Drexel Town Square requirements, at 34.66 square feet each. There are no eye-level window signs proposed at this time. If the applicant wishes to put an eye-level sign, there would be allowed 1 per 12 linear feet of entry frontage, again, with a max of 10% covering of the clear glazing, and staff would be available to assist with that at that time. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for Suite 400 located at 120 West Town Square Way. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Open it up to the commission. Anything?
Any problem?
Nothing to the right? All right. Motion.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for Suite 400 located at 120 West Town Square Way.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Clark, aye.
All right. Before we adjourn. Sorry. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun on you. Aye. Aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
I jumped the gun. Just before we adjourn, as usual, just some reminders. Thank you to our IT guy and our staff for getting us through. Thanks for the presentation, Andrew. Appreciate it. It's always a heavy subject, so appreciate the help there. Tim, thanks for the help. Our Confluence kicked off this weekend. Unfortunately, we caught some bad weather to kick off the art we have down at Lake Vista Park, but the art is in the park, so to speak, and it can be found if you get out of your car and explore the park and find it. So it's going to be there for the next month or so. So get out there, explore the park. And our farmer's market continues. This weekend, Dawn, anything new rolling in there? You got vegetables yet? What's going on?
We have vegetables. And 3 new vendors. 2 or 3 new vendors start this week.
So things really start to pick up this time of year with the heat, the sun, the rain, everything comes in. So please get out there and take part in it. So other than that, adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at, sorry, my phone went dead. 7:21.
Clark will second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Clark, aye.
Avich, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.